Hello everybody, I'm Wraith, and welcome to my first, I guess you could say, discussion video on the channel. Today I'm going to actually be discussing the most recent thing that has happened to Dead by Daylight, which is the absolutely amazing and, personally in my opinion, one of the coolest updates, one of the many coolest updates that have happened in these recent 2 years of Dead by Daylight, that being the Lights Out event. The Lights Out event has been absolutely amazing, and I personally have been enjoying it playing on Survivor. I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy playing on Survivor, the fact that it just makes you feel so uncomfortable. That being said, the overall game mode of this particular version of Dead by Daylight is incredibly fun in the sense of just horror. It captures it all over again. And it feels really just overall suspenseful. It feels very confusing. It feels very simple, but it gets its point across very easily. And just to highlight a few more points, if we're going to even compare to just baseline normal DVD, it really does challenge good players, and it also challenges really new players. And I feel like it's a really good experience of just someone who wants to just get the full-on horror experience. That also being said, when it comes to older players like myself, I have over 4,000 hours in the game, and I have friends who have well over more than that than me, have all really enjoyed it and have had really good feedback on it. When it comes to playing as Survivor, all I can say is that it's an absolute blast. I enjoy everything about the suspense. It's very weird not running perks, not having a setup loadout, and it really is hard mode. It's very hard mode because you have to rely on so many line of sight things. You have to rely on so many ways of pathing when you're just trying to run from the killer, which is very hard to do if you're an inexperienced player. Whereas more experienced players, if they know the maps really well, they kind of know the general layout, it'll be easier for them. As for playing as killer, I can only say that it feels not as stressful, is the best way to put it. It doesn't feel as stressful in the sense of time. I don't feel like I'm being rushed, and I don't feel like I'm being punished for making just a few mistakes. I feel like when both sides make mistakes, it just snowballs on either or side. Mostly on the Survivor, though. Survivors have a higher chance of losing just simply because of staying in groups, staying close to each other, making too much noise, not being stealthy enough, all those things, etc. But it definitely brings a new, different kind of play style into it, taking your time, being stealthy, and when it's time to stealth out and wait out for either you or your teammates to die, that's basically how it goes. That's the only thing I'd have to say, is that there is a slow moment within the game that happens, which is, I would say, when things hit near the end and there's like 2 survivors left and both survivors try to out-survive each other by being quiet. That's where it gets really difficult, because again, the map is completely dark. There's no indication of birds. There's no indication of scratch marks of if there was a survivor anywhere. So you have to check every nook and cranny. God, I know I can speak English. Every nook and cranny in the map just to find 2 survivors that are hidden in the match. That, I would say, is the only boring part. But that happens when, again, people just try to stealth it out instead of trying to do gens, because let's be honest, the whole point of this is to be a horror game. It's supposed to be terrifying. And this game mode really recaptures that feeling of a horror game. I don't get as scared of Dead by Daylight, especially even from stealth killers, as much as I used to. Unlike nowadays. Nowadays, it's different. When it comes to this game mode. With this game mode, I jump, I get scared, I have moments where I'm just like, Jesus, things like that. But the overall grand scheme of it is that it's just so well done in the sense of simplicity. I mean, all they did was really just darken the map, basically like Dredge's power, and remove perks and items. They gave a slight advantage of survivors of having more chests in the map so that they can grab items, but again, those create noise, so for the killer to hear you. And that's just incentivizes you to be stealthier, make smarter plays, plan out where you're going, things like that, using landmarks, basically just overall trying to get yourself familiar with an environment that randomly generates different structures, and having to memorize those structures in that match because you're not going to remember certain structures except for main buildings and shack and things like that in these 4 maps that were put onto the game. And I feel like that was the right call for these certain maps. They're squared, they're rectangular, and they're pretty easy to navigate for experienced players, except for Larry's, which for newer players is a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare for newer players. Whereas for things like Ormond, Family Resort, and Jared Square, I feel like for experienced players, that's some easier maps to navigate. I've had easier maps navigation in this game mode with the Family Estate and Ormond. Those 2 are the easiest ones to kind of navigate in this completely dark game mode, both as killer and as survivor, especially as survivor. As for when it comes to, just other forms of mechanics, playing killer is a little harder if you're not paying attention, just simply because you have no effective way, depending on the killer you are, to track survivors. So what I've noticed when playing this is that high tracking and priority killers that can track very easily, Doctor, Dredge, Xeno, Legion, you name it, anything that gives off a heartbeat or anything of that kind of indication, are seen a little more often. I've seen other killers besides that, though. I will say that the pool of variety is extremely extensive, and it's not disappointing at all. I've had a wide variety of killers, only somewhat few repeats, but even then, like, I'm just enjoying myself and enjoying the variety of killers because I don't know what I'm going to go up against the next match. I love that random, that unknown, which adds to suspense and stuff like that. One moment you have a match where you're getting chased by a Wesker, and the next thing you know, you have Michael Myers coming around the corner and just being absolutely menacing and downing you in one hit because you don't know where they were stalking you from. Plain and simple. That's what it feels like, and that's great. I enjoy that. I enjoy the unknown factors and whatnot. One of the biggest things when it comes to the downsides, though, is that the downsides I would definitely say is matchmaking. I have felt a difference in matchmaking. Midday, when everybody's, just off doing their thing and there's not many people online, unlike the weekends, you definitely feel that the matchmaking is slightly slower than it normally is when you're on a weekday. And that goes into context with 2 things. One is that, it's just, it's a work day. Nobody's really on. And 2, the player base is split up into 2. You have your original game, and then you have this lights out event, which if I must say is that if behavior was to make a game mode permanent in Dead by Daylight, we would have this issue, which brings us back to more of the matchmaking things and speed. So I don't know how I would fix it. That's not my place, but I will say this is that I'm glad that they're keeping this on for 7 days instead of having it permanent. And like they said, because I feel like this is a good test. And I say that this test for something so subtle has been received so positively and so welcomingly and so welcomed by the community. I can speak English, I swear. I've been busy these last couple of weeks. That's been great. And when it comes to just, matchmaking, tracking, things like that, not even tracking, just matchmaking in general, that's a little slower. Not being able to communicate with your teammates, I feel like that's a whole part of the lights out event. You're just unknown. Everything is, where is everybody? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the match. That's the whole point of the game mode, and I think they nailed that with a T by just removing most of the stuff that we as a community have grown accustomed to in the constant games of Dead by Daylight that we've all played. That being said, the repetitiveness of this game mode, I've been playing nothing but this game mode on my stream for the last 6 days. The last day is coming up very, very close. It is actually, tomorrow is going to be the last day by the time this video is being made. And by the time it's published, probably it'll be gone by the day after tomorrow, because it closes on Valentine's. It closes on Tuesday, right before Valentine's Day. So if you haven't played it, go at least play a couple of matches, get your blood points, and play it. At least encourage yourself to play it, or something like that, or something of that nature. Because I'll tell you this right now, as I live and breathe, it is a really fun experience. It feels very casual. That goes into my next thing, which is there's a huge difference of feeling in this game mode as opposed to normal DVD. I can honestly say that this felt more like a casual horror game with friends than Dead by Daylight in the original context. Because in Lights Out, I felt like everything moved at a slower pace than it did in regular Dead by Daylight. In regular Dead by Daylight, depending on the kind of killer, perks, add-ons, a match could either be extended for an hour or can be ended in less than 5 minutes, depending on the killer that you were either going against or how everyone just ended. Now, don't get me wrong, that can happen in Lights Out, but when things go on a steady pace and survivors are smart, you can have a really good match go for like a good 10-15 minutes, which in my opinion, I don't mind that for something so casual, because then it gives that feeling of casual. I don't feel pressured by either side, if that makes sense. So if I'm playing killer, I don't feel pressured by survivors. I just feel like I'm just actually kind of playing the game. I'm letting myself enjoy the game, if that makes sense. I enjoy the game regardless before the game mode. I'm just saying, it feels, I guess you could say, relaxed is the best way to put it. I don't feel as tense. Whereas in the base game, I felt like I was a little more competitive. I feel like it's just, everything's up for grabs. And the second you're away from your keyboard for 10 seconds, 2-3 generators pop. But that's the nature of Dead by Daylight in the base game because of all the perks and the add-ons and the stuff that both sides have to both progress and slow the game down. Whereas in Lights Out, the only mechanics that you really have to slow the game down are to literally kick generators as a killer. And then survivors have to go to those generators and repair them. Thing is that with inexperienced survivors, they're not going to remember where the generators are unless they're listening for them. A good killer that I've found out personally by playing killer is that I would kick at least 1 or 2 gens at the start of the match, and I'd go around the map if I still haven't found anybody, kick generators, find them, kick generators, and then stumble upon survivors and stuff. I know my spawn points because of playing so much Survivor. I know where certain survivors are. But when it comes to just, if I got a really good team of immersed survivors, I have to kick gens to just kind of get an idea of where they're lurking and then focus my area there and track them down. That's been a really good way of kind of finding survivors who are really, really stealthy. On the survivor side, one of the hardest things was just simply keeping an idea of where and when the killer is going to be. That's like the biggest mind game of the entire game mode, which I love. It adds to anticipation, it adds to that thrill, it adds to that suspense, and I love that because you don't know if the killer is going to be right around the corner. My personal favorite map throughout this event has definitely been playing on Leary's, and then my second favorite would have to be Yamaoka. The reason why is because that one has more of a forest feeling and you're getting lost in a forest. I like that. And then you have, actually, no, sorry, not Yamaoka, Ormond. Ormond has more of a dark foresty winter type, and then you have Leary's, which is like being locked at night in a abandoned hospital, and it feels suspenseful, it feels terrifying, it feels great, and I love it. That being said, I would have to also put in my input that the feeling of that suspense is just, it's really well done, and I enjoy it nonetheless. But back to what I was saying about, like, when you're playing as Survivor, I've had to develop, different strats to survive a little bit longer. And the best ways that I've found out of doing that were spreading out, not even doing gens first, just spreading out, looking for loot. That always seemed to help me because it keeps the heat off of yourself when doing gens. And when I know that me and my team would start rushing gens, and try to get to gens and get them done as quick as possible, that's when we would really flatline. Like, we would just start falling down like flies. Whereas, when it comes to playing very calm and stealthily, and you spread out and you do different gens in different areas, and you don't stick on those gens for extremely long, we would make a dent. We would make one serious dent, and the killer can't keep up by kicking more than one gen. Which is perfect. I mean, that's how generally you play normal DVD. A good team will spread out. At the start of the match, they will go to 4 different generators. One person gets in chase. Now you have 3 people on 3 different generators, and progress is getting done on all 3 of those generators. And then if the chase was good enough, 3 generators pop. If the chase wasn't good enough, at least 1 or 2 would pop while the other person went for the save. And then the killer would find someone else, and then it would be at least 1 generator was being worked on 24/7. And in Lights Out, yes, you do not have any information whether or not your teammates are actually working on stuff, but I can definitely say this as a definitive that that plus the atmosphere and the unknown factors, all of it feels great. All of it feels wonderful. I think they did a really fantastic job in just recapturing the horror of Dead by Daylight and adding an immersion that it forces on you, but not in a way where it feels like it's the same. It doesn't feel boring, I should say. It doesn't feel boring because you can still technically break the immersion by just, camping or memeing around and stuff like that. I like, you can always do that in Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight has definitely earned that medal of like a way to break immersion and still have fun. This game's perfect for that. But in this one, just it feels like you're just having a good time playing a horror game, a multiplayer horror game against some of your favorite killers in Dead by Daylight, and you don't feel too punished about it. It feels great. But overall, when it comes to just the idea of having game modes, this is a good start, and I think that they should keep going with it, but take it slow. They have something really good here, and I don't want them to screw this up. So developers, if you ever watch this video, please don't screw up this possibility, because this could go a long way with how games go, and in Dead by Daylight, and hopefully a permanent new kind of game mode for Dead by Daylight. Whatever plans are in the future, I'm super excited to see what they're going to be. And they did say that they're going to come out with more way into the future of different chapters, which I totally understand. Like, they had to cancel the lunar event just to put this event in, and that, honestly, personally, that doesn't bother me, just mainly because this is something that people have wanted in the game for so long. People have wanted to have another game mode in Dead by Daylight for a very long time, and now we have that. We have that. And it's going to take a long time before we get a new game mode event, because they obviously took a lot of time to make sure that they were getting this right so that people could enjoy something so simple. Yeah, it's just basically removing a lot of features, like the HUDs, perks. It's like if you told someone in a private lobby match, you told you and your friends, hey, no perks, no add-ons, no nothing, let's just see how this goes. The difference is that you don't have, it's like infinite oblivious the entire time, and the dredge's power is constantly on. That's basically what it is. And for the killer, it's like as if everyone's running low profile, well, low profile and old Iron Will. That's basically what it feels like, and it feels honestly really cool, because when you're playing killer and you're tracking survivors down, you feel like you're trying to track them down, and survivors, you feel like you're in a desperate situation with limited resources, and you're doing that. You guys did great, developers. I think this is a really good start. As for the drawbacks, I can only say that I think the only drawback would be that, if like certain play styles that the killer plays as, but this is Dead by Daylight, and people can play however they want. It doesn't matter in my opinion. But that being said, I want to know what your guys' opinion on this game mode are, and share some of your critical thoughts and your constructive criticism, or anything that might come to mind about this game mode and the future game modes that we could possibly be seeing. I'm hoping that we see something that involves a new kind of objective. I would love to see that, and one that contributes to getting out of the trial. Whatever that could be, I don't know, but I'd like to see that. In the meantime, I'm going to sign off, and I will bid all of you agents farewell, and I will see you in the fog. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to hear what your comments are in the below. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my Twitch. I stream almost every morning on Twitch. Be sure to check out my Discord so that you know that if I am going to be going live or something comes up. And I will see you all later. Bye, everybody, and have a safe, wonderful rest of your day.